Hello everyone, I'm Alicia. For this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these beaded rings. Here's the list of materials you will need to make these rings. You will need 3.5 feet of 8-pound fireline, 2 beading needles, and you can use size 10 or 12, 8 seed beads, 11 seed beads, and for this ring I will be using 2 different colors of 11 seed beads, but if you want, you could use more. In these 2 rings, I did 3 different colors of 11 seed beads. You're also going to need 4 6mm beads, and they could be any shape you want as long as they are 6mm beads. Now in this ring I did 6mm Czech fire polish beads, in this one I did 6mm gemstone beads, and in this one I did 6mm Swarovski crystal bicones. You're also going to need 6 or 7 4mm beads, and they can also be different shapes, bicones, Czech fire polished, and 6 OC beads should work, and also rounds, like pearls. Now I say that you need 6 or 7 of them because if you don't have a montee, you will need 7 of them. But if you do have montees, you will only need 6 of these, not 7. Now, you will be needing 1 montee, and the montees I have are 5mm montees. So, this ring here, I have a 4mm bead on top, and these 2 I did montees. Now, my montee is 5mm. If you don't have 5mm, and you have 4mm or 6mm, go ahead and try those and see if they work. And if they don't, you could just use 4mm bead for the top. Now, where I live, I really don't have good bead stores. I only have craft stores. So I can't find everything at them. For example, super duos, they don't exist, or twin beads, they don't exist at the craft stores that I go to. So I have to buy that stuff online. But there's this store I found where I live, and it's called Tuesday Morning, and sometimes they get in beading supplies, and sometimes it'll be something that they get just one time and they'll never have it again. So one time I went in there and I found montees, but they are 5mm montees. So I lucked out that day, and I got like I think 4 different colors. But other than finding them at that store, the next place that I have found them at is at thrift stores. And when I find them at thrift stores, I've usually have only found them on clothes or purses, and what I'll do is I'll just buy the item and I'll go home and I'll take it apart for the montees. Now, usually when I find this stuff, it's damaged and nobody else wants it, so I get a really good discount on the item, and I get it for cheap, but I get a lot of beads or whatever in return. So this container here is a container that I refilled, and all of these montees in here I bought from a shirt, and they are really good montees. They're actually not flat back montees, they're actually a diamond shape because they're more sparklier than the regular montees. But the backs are different, but they are basically the same thing. They work the same. So that's 2 different places I've got my montees, and another place you can get them is online, and I have seen 5mm montees on Amazon. So if you don't have montees, you can go online or buy them or check out a craft store. But you really don't have to have them to make this. They are kind of optional. You can just do the 4mm bead. So this is it. I think this is all the materials that you need. If I left anything out, remember I always leave a description bar down there. I always leave in that description bar a list of materials that you will need to make this ring. I went ahead and I threaded my needles, and I made sure my tails are the same length on each needle. And I'm going to start by picking up an 11 seed bead, a 6mm, 11 6mm, an 11, a 6mm, and an 11. So just like this, and I'm going to slide this down. Now I'm going to pick up the last 6mm bead, bring it down past the needle, and cross through it with my other needle. Put the needles together, and bring this bead down to the center of my thread. Just like this, and make sure it's snug. So now I'm going to take my needles, and on each needle I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads. 2 11/0 seed beads, just like this, 2 on each needle, slide that down. Then I'm going to pick up my montee, and I'm going to slide it down. I'm sorry if I'm sniffling, I have a cold. And I'm going to cross through the montee, just like this, and pull it down. This is what we have. Let me zoom in a little bit more. Now I'm going to take my needles again and pick up 2 seed beads. So 2 seed beads each needle. Slide it down. I'm going to take one of my needles and go through this bead, the 6mm, not the seed bead. Pull it through. So it looks like this. And then I'm going to take my other needle and I'm going to pass through the same 6mm bead that my other needle went through, just like this. And now we have an X on the top of our 6mm beads. And I'm just going to pull this tight and press this down. Now we have this, the center of our ring. Now that I have this made, I have to reposition my needle so I could start adding more beads. So I'm going to take this needle over here. I'm going to use my right hand for this because I'm right-handed. And it's coming out of this hole, and I'm going to pass it through this seed bead and then through the 6mm bead, just like this. Pull it through. So now I have a needle and thread exiting out of this bead and one out of this bead. Just going to tighten that up. Now I'm going to take this needle and I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, 4 8/0 seed beads, and an 11/0. Slide it down. Now I'm exiting out of this hole here, and I'm going to go around, and I'm going to go through the same 6mm bead. I'm going around in a circle. But I'm not just going to go through that one, I'm also going to go through the 11/0 seed bead beside it. So pull your thread through. We should have this loop on the side. Now I'm going to take this needle and I'm going to go through the bottom. Just like this, and pull it tight. Now I'm going to pick up with the same needle an 11/0 and 4 8/0 seed beads and an 11/0. Just like this, and slide it down. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm exiting out of this 6mm bead and I'm going to go back around through the same bead. Try not to go through the 11/0 seed bead, just a 6/0, just like this. And then I'm also going to go through the next 11/0 seed bead, that one, and pull the needle through. So now I have a loop. So I'm going to have my needles meet on this bead. So I need to take this needle and pass through this bead and pull it snug. Now I'm going to put this needle on my mat and I'm going to go to my other needle. So I'm going to pick up 1 seed bead, 1 11/0, and 4 8/0s, and an 11/0. Slide it down. I'm exiting right here out of this 6mm bead, and I'm going to go back around through the same bead. So just like this, don't pass through the 11/0 seed bead. Oh, and I also have to go through this 11/0. So when I say don't pass through it, I mean don't pass through that one. So just like this. And we have a new loop. So you could see that the loops are only connected to the 6mm beads. See, the loops are only connected around those, not around the ones here in the corners between the 6mm bead. So this is my thread right here, and I'm going to take my needle, straighten my needle out, and I'm going to pass through this 6mm bead. So both of my needles or exiting out of this bead, just like this. Now I'm going to pull my strings tight, so my work is tight. Don't need it to be loose. And if you want, you can go back and check and make sure that you only have loops around these 6mm beads and you're not going through that 11-0 seed bead in the corners. So now that my threads are exiting out of this one 6mm bead, I'm going to pick up one 11-0 seed bead on each needle and slide that down. And then I'm going to pick up 4 8-0 seed beads. Slide it down like this. And then I'm going to cross through these 4 with my other needle and pull my needles so these 4 beads come down. Now this is going to be the side of my ring right here. So if you look at my ring, I'm right here on the side, and what I have to do is fill in these gaps right here with bicones and my seed beads. So one at a time, I'm going to take a needle, pick up an 11-0, a bicone, 4mm bead, whatever you're using, and an 11-0 seed bead. And I'm going to fill in this space right here. So exiting out of these 8s, I'm going to go through these 8s. These 4 8s, just like this. Pull it through. Again, I'm going to pick up an 11-0 seed bead and my 4mm bead. And remember I said you can also use 6-0 seed beads in place of these 4mm. I'm exiting here and I'm going to go through these, but I'm not going to go through all 4 8s because I'm now straight across from my ring band where it needs to be. So I'm just going to go through 3 of these 8-0 seed beads. Pull it through, and this is what it looks like. Now I need to swap my needles and do the other side. So here I am. I'm going to pick up one 11, one 4mm bicone, and an 11. So exiting out of here, I have to go through these 4 8-0s, just like this, and pull it through. I'm going to pick up an 11-0 again, 4mm bead, and an 11-0, and I'm going to go through 4 8-0 seed beads. So I have to lift this one up and go through these 4, or I mean these 3, and pull it through. So now, when I pull my strings tight, this should be flat and I should have a thread coming out of this side and this side. So there should be 2 8-0 seed beads in between my threads. And this is what your piece should look like. So before we add the ring band, we need to make sure that this is nice and tight and we have no loose threads and we don't have any mistakes. And then we are ready to add our ring band. So now I'm going to show you the ring band, and whenever I have a ring like this that's kind of big on the top, I like to have a very nice start on the side of my ring band, so it's not like a real big ring and then it's a skinny band. I like them to be kind of, you know, slowly go into the small ring band. So I have 8-0 seed beads here on the sides to make it look more decorative, and the same with this one. So I'm going to start by picking up 2 11-0 seed beads on each needle, slide that down. I'm going to pick up a 4mm bead and cross through it, bring it down, and this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads on each side, slide them down, pick up 2 more, and cross through them. Just like this. And I'll zoom in a little bit more so you can see. Two on each side. Pick up 2 more and cross through them. Bring it down, just like this. Again, 2 more on each side. Bring them down, 2 more, and then cross through them. We'll do this a couple more times. 2 on each side. Slide it down. 2 more 11-0 seed beads. And cross through them. One more time. 2 more on each side. Slide it down. Pick up 2 more. And cross through. So keep going, repeating this ring band until you get to the length you need that'll fit around your finger. Keep going. Here I am, and now I have to make this end look like my other end. So I have 2 11-0 seed beads on each thread, and now I'm going to pick up a 4mm bicone and cross through it, bring it down. I'm going to pick up 2 11-0 seed beads on each needle, slide them down. I'm going to flip this upside down. I'm going to take the needle right here, and I'm going to pass through these 2 8-0 seed beads. Now, this is where I'm at on this side, so my band is going to be attached to this, but I have to add the decorative sides, so I'm going to also go through this 8-0. So I'm actually going through these 3 8-0s and this 11-0. So pull this through, and here comes my band. I'm going to go to my other needle. I'm going to go through these 2 right here, and again, this is where my band is connected. But to have the decorative edge, I also have to go through these. So through these 3 8s and through this 11. Pull it through. Pull both of my needles. And this is what the side of my ring looks like. So now I'm going to fill in these edges here. And I'm going to pick up 2 8-0 seed beads. And I'm going to skip over this 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to go through the second one. Pull this thread tight. I'm going to pick up another 8-0, and I'm going to fill in this big gap right here beside my bicone. So I'm going to go through these 2 11-0 seed beads, fill in this larger gap. Now I'm going to go to my other needle, pick up 2 8-0 seed beads, skipping over this first 11-0, I'm going to go through the second. Then I'm going to pick up another 8-0 seed bead, and I'm going to fill in this gap right here. So I'm going to go through these 2 11-0 seed beads on the sides. Now I'm going to pull both of these tight so there's no thread showing, and this is what the side of my ring looks like. Now that I have the side decorated, I'm going to work on filling in the edges of my ring band. So I'm going to go to my 11-0 seed bead, and I'm going to pick up 1, go through 2 11s, and fill that in. Pick up another, and pass through 2 11s and fill that gap in. Pick up another, pass through 2 11s, fill that gap in. Pick up an 11, pass through 2, fill the gap in. Pass through 2 again, and fill that gap in. Now I'm about halfway through my ring band, so I'm going to stop and I'm going to go to my other needle and fill in the side the same way. Just so it tightens together at the same time, because sometimes if I do just one whole side and I don't swap back to the other, the ring will be kind of warped. So fill that gap in, pick up another, and fill this gap in. So keep going, repeating these steps, filling in the very edges of your ring band until you get to the other side, and I'll show you what to do when you get over here. So keep going, filling in these edges until you get over here. Now I'm on the other side of my ring, and I have to fill in these 2 gaps with 8/0 seed beads. So pick one up, take the needle, and go through this seed bead, the 11/0, but not through the second one, just through the first one. Pull it through. Then I'm going to pick up 2 8/0s, and I'm going to take my needle and pass through this 11/0 seed bead and through the 8, just like this. Now I have to take my needle and go through these 2, these 2 8s here that connect my ring band, and then through this 8 and through this 11. And then I'll start tying knots on this side. But before I do that, I have to pick up more seed beads. So I'm going to put my needle in my mat, swap hands. So I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to take this needle, pick up an 8, fill in this gap again on the other side, and I have to go through just 1 seed bead, fill the gap in, pick up 2 8/0s, and I have to go through this 11/0 and through this 8. Now sometimes I could go through the other ones, but sometimes I can't make it, and unbelievably I went through all of them. Sometimes it's kind of too tight and you can only get through like 2 at a time, but I managed to get through all of them this time. So you want to go through all of these beads and you want to exit out over here at this seed bead, and the same on this side. And my thread's wrapped around this side, so I'm just going to put this through. So now my thread is exiting right here from the 11/0 seed bead on each side, and you want to pull your threads tight so your ring isn't loose. And go ahead and try this on and make sure it fits you. Now I'm going to show you how to tie the knots. So I have a thread here and a thread here. I'm going to take my needle underneath here and I'm going to catch this thread that's running through the bicone. Pull it through, make a loop, and go through the loop twice. Pull the knot down right here in front of the bicone. Then I'm going to take my needle and go through the bicone and the 11/0 seed bead. Pull it tight and the knot is going to slip inside. There went my knot. So now I'm going to tie a knot here. So I have to catch this thread that's right here. So I have to go in here again, come out, make a loop, and go through it twice. Pull it down, and here's my knot. I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to pass through 2 of these seed beads, 8/0s, and hide the knot inside by pulling it. I'm going to tie another knot here. So take my needle, go through here, make a loop, go through it twice, and pull my knot down. Now I'm going to go through another bead. and I'll have to go through 2 probably, and actually I have to go through 3 because I can't tie a knot under here. And then I would just tie another knot here, a half hitch knot. So after you tie knots here, you're going to want to go through this bead, and you can't go down this way because that's not your old thread path. You have to follow your old thread path, and you always want to do that. So if you look here, my thread path is actually this way, okay, and then there's a thread path going this way. So there's one going this way, and it's one that's curving and going around this way. So to follow my old one, I have to go through these beads here. So I'm going to go through this bicone, this seed bead, through all these green ones, through this one, and then I'm going to go down. So then I could tie a knot here, and I'm going to work my way down the very edge of this ring band, and I'm just going to reinforce the ring band, and I'll tie some knots if I want, and I try to use up the rest of my leftover thread, because doing that really enforces the ring, and it makes it much more durable, and the ring is going to last a very long time. And I always recommend doing this. A lot of people, they'll tie a couple knots and they'll just snip the thread, and it doesn't make the ring or whatever you're making last very long if you reinforce it more, especially where there's sharp beads at. So if you are using like sharp glass beads, if you want, instead of going through the ring band, you can, I'm mixing out here. Now if I wanted to go in here, and if these were sharp beads, I could reinforce them, but instead of going through this one, I would just go through these green ones and then through this one, and then I would loop around following my old thread path, and I would go through these in a circle a few times, reinforcing that, because sometimes glass beads are sharp, especially the cheaper bicones. So keep going, tying your knots. Make sure that you tie knots on or with your other needle on this side, and just keep reinforcing the ring and try to use up as much as your tail as you can. This is it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please like this video, leave me a comment, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and like me on Facebook. And don't forget to share pictures of the things you've made from my videos on my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching.